Hi, thank you for joining me today. I wanted to come on and talk about obesity and the behaviors of obesity, Dr. Now, and 600-pound life. This is not to shame anyone. This is not to point fingers at anyone. This is to take a psychological look of the behaviors and the enablism that goes on in the family dynamics, unhealthy eating styles, and people's backstory. I think that when we go on this weight loss, we can really learn from the 600-pound life show, not in a way of judgment, but in a way of learning the dynamics of some of the effects of obesity and how we can apply them to our own life and how we went wrong and somehow turn the light bulb on and say, yeah, this is how I can fix it. Because this is a lifelong struggle for some of us. Doesn't matter what surgery we've had, because we can learn to get around our weight loss surgery. And then one day we wake up and say, oh my gosh, and look in the mirror, I'm fat again, right? So sometimes it sneaks up on us because we fail to look at the mirror. We fail to evaluate our own personal eating patterns and try to nip it in the bud and try to correct those behaviors before it becomes an issue and we become obese again. So let's take a look at Dr. Now. This is Lacy's story. I looked at her backstory, and I'm going to link it. She's been obese all her life since she was about 6 years old. It's kind of like the same story of, childhood obesity, unhealthy eating, secret eating. And I think that the obesity gene, which we know exists, is coming from both her parents. Her father in another video, and I'll link it, he's shaming her, Lacy, when you look at him and clearly he has an obesity issue. Mom's had gastric bypass, so she clearly had an eating disorder of disordered eating, unhealthy eating in the past. So she's had gastric bypass, and Dr. Now, he's sort of like a straight shooter, and he does the tough love kind of thing because he's 73 years old. He's been in practice many years. So I kind of think that, he's got a harder shell, but he has to have a harder shell because these people are on the verge of actually dying. Some of them die even though they have weight loss surgery because of years and years they damage their bodies from obesity and let's face it, years and years and years of damage control for whatever reason. Maybe it's psychological, maybe it's parental, maybe it's enablism, maybe it's self-sabotage, maybe it's child abuse, maybe it's sexual abuse. There's so many things that are under the umbrella of obesity that it's in Pandora's box, and some of us don't even want to open it because they don't want to face it. But I think the mental health component is very, very important when we go on this path. Some of us really don't understand it, and we really have to have some deep psychological counseling before you decide to have your weight loss surgery, because I can guarantee you, once you pull the food away, food beast comes back, and the mental mind starts, right? So let's take a professional look at this. This is not to shame people. This is to evaluate the eating disorder.
I want you to start developing the habit.
He puts her on a 1,200 calorie diet. He wants her to walk an hour a day.
I'm going to give you a 1,200 calorie a day, high protein, low carb diet that I want you to start immediately.
Okay.
And I want you to start developing a habit of only eating 3 times a day, no snack in between. If you do that, you should have no problem losing at least 80 pounds in the next 2 months. Okay?
Yes, sir.
I also want you to
So when you're 600 pounds and you need to lose 40 pounds a month, that's not a big deal, right? Because she's at a high BMI. She just has to control her eating and stick to the diet plan.
start getting more active and work on your stamina by walking at least 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the evening. Got it?
I can do.
So he wants her to walk 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the evening, an hour a day. My doctor recommended the same thing. Now, being that she's 500 pounds, 600 pounds, that's going to be an issue with her legs. So a lot of things that go on behind the scenes, I'm sure. He needs to get her in the pool. That's what she needs to do. She needs to do some bike, some walking, and some in the pool action, because I personally don't think she's going to be able to stand on her legs for 30 minutes. She might have to do 10 minutes at an interval and then rest, get up, walk 10 minutes, and then come back. Yeah, she might not even be able to do 10 minutes.
If you do that, when you come back, then I'll approve you for weight loss surgery. Okay?
Yes, sir.
But if you don't, it won't even be possible to even consider performing any surgery. Because when you have a high BMI like that, it's going to be almost impossible to produce sleep and breathe for you because of the heavy chest and abdomen. So this is your only option. You have to start losing weight. And if you do that, and we move ahead with weight loss surgery for you, you need to move to Houston for a while. And you need someone with you to help you.
Okay.
So they're going to be in.
So the mother has had gastric bypass surgery. And listen to what Dr. Now says to her.
Problem?
No.
Who's going to be able to move with you?
Her mom.
Okay. Are you any help for her? Because you haven't been very successful with your own weight loss, so I'm skeptical.
So he says she hasn't been very successful with her own weight loss. I don't know what this lady started out as. She's probably over the BMI, and Dr. Now says, well, you really haven't been much help to your daughter, because if you had gastric bypass surgery and she's the daughter who's 600 pounds, obviously what your job as a mother or a parent is to keep your children healthy. Well, obviously she didn't do it because she's obese herself, and she had gastric bypass. So you would have thought that the daughter, if she really wanted to start on her weight loss, she would do the things that her mother was doing, right?
Well, you got to encourage healthy choices with her.
She does what she wants, doctor.
What do you mean?
She does what she wants.
So you're saying you don't eat unhealthy food around her or bring her anything you shouldn't be eating?
We don't live together now.
Okay, that doesn't mean you got to model good habits to her and not enable her. So you both.
So there you go. He says it. You got to model good behavior habits. So I think in the weight loss community, if you have children, especially if they're on the point where they're getting heavy around puberty or whatever, you really need to take a look at your children, because your children, it has inherited what? Your eating patterns, your behaviors, the social dynamics that are around food, and your genes, right? If you watch Elizabeth Cody Stanford, the Obesity is More Than You Think, came out in 2017, there's a direct correlation during pregnancy and obesity. And if the mother's obese during pregnancy, she passes those genetic things to her unborn fetus.
You need to start to get your weight under control if you want to do this together. And if you don't, then we may start doing weight check with you then. Okay, because there's no margin of error here or any time to waste. And I see your body is a ticking clock right now that is going to go off any minute.
I can do it. I think I can do it. I'm ready to do it.
So this girl, I mean, this woman, Lacy, she's a young girl. She's not like 50 some years old. She's only 20 some years old. She's only 20 some years old. Okay. How does a person, how does a mother, how does a father allow their child to get to the point where they're like that size? I mean, and especially shame on her pediatrician through her life, right? That didn't really look at this issue. I mean, she just didn't wake up and she was Jabba in the Hutt. This has been going on for years and years and years. Shame on those medical practitioners, because weight loss surgery has been around for years. And this girl obviously needed it when she turned 18. She should have did something back then. Now she's letting her body deteriorate to probably she has so many comorbid issues of disease in her body. She probably has a gallbladder that's ready to explode. She probably has an enlarged liver. Her kidneys are probably shot. Her all her internal organs, her heart is probably so big that it's ready to explode. She has some serious medical issues. So I think that we really need to look at ourselves and evaluate the situation about our families and our loved ones who live in the house, because we are not only going on this journey, this healthy journey, this reevaluation of our life, not only for us, but our families. So we have to evaluate our whole social dynamics that involve our family, our husband. You got to make sure your husband or your partner or your confidant, whoever lives in the house, is on your team, because that will determine your success in the future, your long-term success. Because the success of the weight loss surgery, there is a metabolic time frame where it works efficiently, right? And then it sorts die off. It'll die off. And especially if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, as far as eating the proper things, paying attention to what you should be doing, exercising to what you're bariatric, or movement, or really doing those things that you're supposed to be doing, taking your vitamins, really abiding by the weight loss guidelines forever and ever. So anyway, I'll link these two videos that you can go back and review them. Thank you for your time, and see you in the next video.